get started, let's introduce everyone in this meeting. I'm Sandra Brock. When I call your name, please confirm that you can hear me by verifying that you are present. Starting with the commissioners, Patrick.
Present.
Alicia cannot make it. Helen?
I am here and I can hear you.
And John?
Present, and I can hear you.
As far as staff goes, Leah?
Present.
And potential speakers tonight, Jean Christie.
I'm here.
Thank you. And April Dorowski.
She will not be here.
Thank you for letting me know that. Okay. This open meeting of the Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely via Zoom, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to COVID-19. The order suspends requirement of open meeting law to have meetings in the public accessible physical location and encourage public bodies to hold meetings remotely with reasonable public access. Access information for the public is provided on the town website. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. As chair, I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will invite each commissioner by name to provide any comments, questions, or motions. After the commissioners have spoken, I will allow public comment, starting with those received in advance of the meeting, followed by real-time comments or questions typed by participants in the chat feature. Anything typed in the chat feature needs to be addressed to everyone, not any sole individual. Both types of comments and questions will be followed by real-time commission and applicant responses. Finally, each vote will be conducted by a roll call vote. That's our little opening spiel. Any action items we can cover before we have to do the first public hearing, even though that's a continuance?
You can do just about anything other than 8 Pine because it won't fit ahead of the 7:15, but anything else, go for it.
Sure. So let's, how about the potential conservation land donation? That seemed fairly straightforward.
Sure. So we've been talking on and off about 4 Millennium Drive. It's a parcel over in Centec Park. We were waiting on the title search and town council to review that title search. She gave her sign off on it, and per her advice, I wrote out the motion for you guys to take to recommend accepting the land donation with a contingency in there that we previously discussed about a new 21E. So if somebody wants to read that off, or if anybody has any other questions for me before you do.
I think that would be great. Does anyone want to make the motion that Leah so kindly already wrote for us?
I'll motion to recommend accepting the land donation contingent upon the result of a new phase 1 assessment to be conducted after a favorable town meeting vote.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Patrick?
Yes.
Helen?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
And I am also yes, the motion carries. Okay. So let's go down to the emergency certificate for 14 Misco Brook. Is that easy enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
We gave this address an emergency certificate before, maybe about a year ago, maybe not even that long, where they wanted to install a pond leveling device, which seems to be all the rage these days.
Yep.
To solve an issue they were having with flooding and beavers. So we had issued one before. Turns out in the months since, something about the device failed, so they need to get in there and do a repair. So I did issue them a new emergency certificate. You get 30 days to do work under these. So this is just 30 days to go in and do the repair to the existing system. So you guys would need to ratify that document that I issued if you're in agreement.
Do you have any, that's fine. Thanks, Leah. Do I have any questions or discussion
Yeah.
about the beavers?
I have a couple of questions, just to clarify, the certificate is to follow the protocol to make this leveling device introduced to the wetland to be working, and now it doesn't work, and so we have to reissue this to get it fixed, or have them fix it, or allow them to fix it. Is that, could you just clarify what the ratification of emergency certificate actually means?
Sure. So an emergency certificate is sort of a different avenue for permitting for us. So traditionally, most activities go through either an RDA or an NOI when they have the time to do so. But if something comes up that's an emergency and needs to be done on a quicker timeline, and they can't wait for our next meeting and public hearing and then issuance of those documents, staff or a member of the commission can sign an emergency certificate to give 30 days for emergency work to be completed. We can put conditions on those as well. So anytime that there's something that I issue as staff, whether it's one of these or another instance would be an enforcement order, I then bring it to the commission to ratify, so that then it's in the name of the commission, not just me as the agent.
Right, and this is just a device that's put in
Excuse me.
for the beaver dam, so that allows the water to continue to flow. It averts some flooding, and the first one they put in is not functioning, so they're really going in to repair it. So,
Okay, fair enough.
all right, no, that's
Thank
what we
you.
want. We want to
Thank
ask the
you.
questions if we don't know. And so we have the emergency certificate. Do I have a motion to approve it or ratify it? I guess would be the correct term.
I'll motion to ratify the emergency certificate for 14 Misco Brook.
Do I have a second?
You do.
And we'll do a roll call vote. Patrick,
Yes.
Ellen,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. So the motion passes and it's ratified. Okay. All right. So we should be able to take care of the meeting minutes. So we have a couple of them. So we have April 6th and the 20th, which is our normal meeting minutes. And then we have one amended from March 2nd, 2001. What's the amended one?
So that's just to correct a name. I forget the incorrect name that was typed. I think Phil instead of Bill Nelson with the Lake Quinsigamond Commission.
Oh, okay.
So it's just to fix a typo.
All right. No problem with that. Does anyone have any comments, questions, or additions to the minutes? Can I have a motion?
Do we need separate motions or one to accept all three?
Unless someone has any specific questions on any specific ones, we can take them all together.
I'll motion to accept April 6th, 2021, April 20th, 2021, and the amended March 2nd, 2021 meeting minutes.
Do I have a second?
I second that.
Roll call vote. I'm going to go reverse things. John,
Yes.
Helen,
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
I am also a yes, and the motion passes. Okay, seeing that it's 7:14 on my clock.
Just rolled over.
Mine did too. Perfect. Okay.
No time like the
s-
present.
You're right. So this is, so just to confirm before I read this in, the Fitzpatrick Road is the one that's got continued?
Correct. We just
Okay.
need to open it up and then continue.
Sounds good. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Grafton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, May 4th, 2021 at 7:15 to act upon a notice of intent application for Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw permit for the replacement of a culvert on Fitzpatrick Road over Cronin Brook. The applicant has requested a continuance. Is there anyone here for this particular meeting? Just in case, if there is, I'm just going to explain that the applicant has requested a continuance, so that's what the motion we're doing right now. Do I have a motion for continuance?
Motion to continue to May 18th.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
And do a roll call vote. Patrick,
Yes.
Helen,
Yes,
John.
Yes.
I am also yes. The motion carries. Okay. So the only other public hearing we have was a continuance. That's 8 and 100 Pine Street, Leah.
That's a continuance from last time,
Yep.
as well as 11 Wheeler, but 11 Wheeler just wants to continue. 8 Pine is what Jean is here for.
Okay, so why don't we do 8 Pine? So pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, and the Grafton Stormwater Management Bylaw, the Grafton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a notice of intent application for Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, an application for Stormwater Management Bylaw for property redevelopment to construct residential and retail buildings at 8 and 100 Pine Street in Grafton. So who is here for this project?
I'm Jean Christie, senior engineer with Ty and Bond. I'm also here with Matt Welter from GSX ODG. He's in the attendees list as the applicant. I think this is going to be really quick because I think we just have some things to update with you, maybe a couple small discussion topics, unless anybody on the commission has anything else to ask about. But just to give you, a quick update, last time I was here was April 6th, so it's been a whole month. Since then, there's a few things that have happened, so that, nothing major, but just some coordination things that have been going on that we've been working on. The first was MIPA. So back in March, we filed an ENF with MIPA. We extended the comment period for an extra week due to some traffic concerns with the town of Shrewsbury. I know that doesn't matter to you folks at all, but just to circle back on all the MIPA stuff, we received our certificate last Friday. So I did forward that to Leah, just for your records. Peer reviews, we're still working through that. We only submitted yesterday to Graves' first round of review comments, which were pretty heavy on stormwater management as expected. I believe with that submission, Graves will be able to move into the stormwater permit peer review. So hopefully in a couple of weeks, we can hear from them with some additional comments on those particular pieces. We're continuing to work with Job Corps and DCAM just to keep them apprised of what we're doing on their property. There are a couple areas where we are working on their property with some grading and driveways and utility infrastructure and such. We actually are planning on meeting with them tomorrow on site just to talk through a couple of those things. I know we need to get some official buy-in from DCAM for you folks. So we're working on getting that documentation for you. I think the last one, the bigger one, is we received DEP comments a couple weeks ago. There are, I think the majority of them are pretty similar to things that Graves commented on in the planning board peer review. But there is one, and I know I just submitted the responses to you folks today, so you haven't had a chance to look at them. But there is one that if you'll entertain talking about it, I'd like to approach it with you just to get some feedback on it. But that's completely up to you. If you want to hold off and absorb and read through the comments, the responses, and the documentation before we talk about it, that's fine with me too. I understand.
I mean, if you want to just bring up what that is, and yeah, we'll most likely will be fairly short conversation, but just to let me know what that is.
Yeah. So if you'll let me share my screen.
So it won't let you, but I'm happy to go to whatever page you need.
Yeah. So that was in the on page 4 of what I submitted today. So one of the comments from DEP asked us to look at a culvert that the wetland discharges through underneath the MBTA rail line. And I agree, it's a perfectly fine comment to receive, and I'm not surprised I received it. So they want to look at what the capacity of that culvert during the 100-year storm event, because we are increasing our peak rates during that storm. Come to find out, that culvert is very buried. Water doesn't actually flow to that culvert. It's flowing, if you can see on that left-hand side, you can see the culvert down at the bottom in the center, or at least just the crown of it. But water is actually flowing through the gravel bedding of the rail lines, not that culvert. So I how to respond to that and provide some documentation about what the capacity of that culvert is challenging. At this point it's 0 really, because it's pretty full of debris and such. The capacity of water flowing through that gravel bed is much larger. So that's a really silly response. And it's really difficult to kind of quantify and answer for DEP and you folks. So any feedback you can give me on, if there's anything else we can do to satisfy that comment. There's not a lot of storage on that downstream side of that, or the upstream side of that culvert for that we can document based on the topography that we have. So it's kind of a tough one. This is a piece where I would highly recommend that we, contact MBTA, somebody contact them and say, did you know about this? Did you know that water's flowing through your rail lines? And you might want to address it before, something settles improperly.
Yeah, no, I would generally, that someone needs to reach out to MBTA, and since DEP is asking you the question, I have no idea, how far you would get with that request.
Right.
But I mean, this isn't on your property, I'm guessing.
Correct.
Okay. And you're not changing. I think that the issue comes in with the fact that you are increasing the rate there.
But not the volume.
Okay.
So, we found that, we can decrease a rate sometimes, but increase the volume, and that becomes a bigger problem.
Yeah.
But I don't know what the commission, your kind of standard operating procedure on this is, and
Pretty much don't have one, since this is probably the first time something like this has come up where, you have a 12-inch RCP or something?
we don't even know. We expected it to be much bigger than 12
Right.
inches. I think from a hydraulic standpoint, it should be bigger.
Gotcha. So it's a good question. I mean, we typically are going to follow the Wetlands Protection, Act and regulations as far as what you're responsible for. But the reality, this is here, so it's probably something we should find out about. I don't know if it's your responsibility to correct that situation. I don't know if Leah, in any of the times that we've had the different, I guess, maintenance projects along the track, that any of this has ever come up before.
Not that I remember.
Yeah. So, I mean, we do some, or I should say, they do some maintenance of the railroad corridor, but that's usually vegetation, and we don't ever, it's an existing there. So I don't know if Lee, if you got anything to add to that, other than I think we'll be very curious to see what our peer reviewer says, and if anyone else has questions on the commission on this. But in general, it's not on your property, so.
Right. We feel like we're kind of like, here's the situation.
Yeah.
What do we want to do with it? So I think
Leah, it's not the MBTA that, does the MBTA own this track now? I thought it was, is it? I'm not even sure who owns that track right in that area.
Well, MBTA, is that the one that's usually in conjunction with
Keolis.
Keolis?
Yep.
Yeah.
Keolis is their operator, I guess you'd call it, that operates the commuter rail. So it could be, okay. Well, I don't have any answers for you on this, but I thank you for just bringing it up. I don't know. We'll have to look at all the information and see what, if someone can reach out to MBTA, that would be helpful. So,
So that was
Any-
really the all the things that I really want to just brief you all
Okay.
on. I know that we'll request a continuance for 2 weeks and hopefully get
Okay.
a little more progress happening by then, but unless anybody has any other questions.
all right. Anyone? I'll just go around the commission first. So Patrick, any questions on what we've got here?
No, nothing really at this time.
Okay. Helen
No, I have no questions.
and John.
No questions.
And since this is still a public hearing, I will open up to the public. If anyone is here that wants to comment on this or has a question on this hearing, please use the chat feature to add any questions or comments, and we're happy to answer it. This public hearing is not going to be closed tonight. We will be continuing it until the next public hearing, which is the 15th,
18th.
18th, which is the 18th. So
I do have one thing to add.
yes.
Jean covered most of what's outstanding, but I just wanted to add that one other thing we were waiting on was adding acreage figures to the phasing plan.
Yes, that I saw
Okay.
that on my list of things to do, and I did not get
Okay.
to that. But yes, we recognize that you've asked for that. So
All right, sounds good. So you are requesting a continuance to the 18th?
yes, please.
All right, so do I have a motion?
A motion to continue to May 18th.
Second?
I'll second it.
I have a motion and second. I'll do a roll call vote. I'll switch it up again. John?
Yes.
Helen?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
I am also a yes. The motion carries. Thank you. See you in a couple weeks.
Good night.
Okay, so now we're up to, we have the one other continuance,
Yep.
and that was a continuance for 11 Wheeler Road.
Correct.
Okay, I don't have the usual, wait a minute, wrong one. Sorry. I need to switch. All right, here we go. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw and the Grafton Stormwater Management Bylaw, the Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a notice of intent, application for Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, application for Stormwater Management Bylaw for the development of a 6-lot subdivision at 11 Wheeler Road. The applicant has requested a continuance to May 18th. Do I have a motion to continue?
Motion to continue to May 18th.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
I have a motion, a second. Do a roll call vote. Patrick,
Yes.
Helen,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and I am also yes, the motion carries. Okay. All right. So Leah, the only other thing is discussing the outstanding mower invoice. Is there
We have-
anything else besides that?
We have that, and then we have a discussion on the Hassanamesset Woods trailblazing
Okay.
volunteer project that came up a couple meetings ago.
Okay. Which should we take up first?
I'd probably do the trailblazing because I think it'll be quick.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna promote an attendee here to a panelist so that she can talk.
Sure.
So Dawn, if you can hear me, I think it's gonna kick you off for a second and give you a button to rejoin as a panelist. So I can just give you guys, hello. I can just give you guys a little recap. So a couple meetings ago, Dawn approached us with a volunteer project to do some trailblazing out at Hassanamesset Woods with the standard system that the Land Trust uses. We looked at some pictures of what that looks like. And I recommended that you guys take a vote to allow that work. for the numbered loop trail out there. The reason I was stipulating that was to avoid authorizing any work that would end up going on private property, because there's a lot of trails out there that fork off in various places, and I wasn't sure where they all went, and I didn't want to have you guys authorize somebody to go do work that's not on town-owned land. So Dawn has come back asking to be able to extend her project. She provided a map that I can put up on the screen in a second of the trail system, and we can discuss it a little bit further. I don't know if Dawn, you have anything you want to add, or I'll go ahead and throw that up on the screen.
I can speak a little bit to the trail usage. I'm also in contact with the Grafton Land Trust trail steward for Hass Woods property, and we've hiked the trails a few times. What you see here is everything that is, one, it's of course mapped already, but two, it's also highly populated in Trail Forks, which is the trail GPS app that has basically risen to the surface as a favorite tool for navigating properties. The trick is that many people, myself included, I don't really want to have my phone in my hand when I'm out enjoying a trail. And so we've had, now we know of it, I don't know if the news has gotten back to you guys, but we've had people get lost on our trails in town. And so I joined the land trust, I don't know, about 3 years ago. I've been on the board. And that was basically what I wanted to do, was I wanted to get in and do trail work, specifically marking trails so that people could find their way, because I've been living in town now for about 25 years and I just found all the great trail systems, and I would love to be able to promote it, but I can't tell you how many times people will say to me, oh, I'd love to, but I don't want to get lost. So that's basically it. And I think that the trails are very well delineated. I don't believe I've been on all of the trails that you see here, and I don't ever remember being out there thinking, where does that trail go? Because I don't believe there are any. Of course, I'm just one person. So there you go.
So Leah, what you're talking about, and it's been probably a year or two since I've walked out there. I'm just trying to remember my experiences. So when we look at like this map here, and all of the trails that are shown on here is what's part of the land trust, correct?
So there's a bunch
No.
of parcels in this area.
Okay, that's what I thought.
over
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
To the town GIS. So this is the main one for Hassanemet Woods right here.
Yeah.
This is the one that contains that numbered loop trail we talked about
Right.
last time. But there are other little parcels. There's a few more that are town, and there are some that are land trusts. So there's a nice big contiguous area here. But
Yep.
the concern that I had was when you compare this, where you can see the property lines, and then you go back and look at where these trails go, some of these link up over here, so they're clearly crossing private property to get to Keith Hill Road. And there's another instance over here that goes way out here to 140, and that's on another parcel that's not town-owned
Right.
land either.
And that's an easement that goes through there, right?
This one's owned by the New England Power Company over
Yeah,
here.
you're right. But the long, thin one parcel,
This
that's,
one?
yeah, that's the easement for the power.
I'm trying to get my bearings here. Hold on.
Yeah, just bring up the aerial.
No, that goes this way.
Oh, that goes that
Power
way.
lines
Okay.
go that way.
All right. And there's, who knows what that other, I guess that's, Yeah, so Don, I think the issue here is just what Leah said, is that I don't think we have a problem, identifying the trails or giving information, but we can't authorize something that potentially can go onto private property. So that's the only hang up. So the question is how do you determine what's publicly owned? And I think we could work with the land trust, whether it's Town of Grafton and land trust land. I think either those are fine. You get permission, but along private property, we're not going to be able to get permission for that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the only hang up.
And of course that begs another question, is if there are trails that are going through private property, if that what you were pointing out, the 140 trail, if that's cutting through private property, then it should be closed, right? With a sign that says, over on Williams Preserve at the top of Brigham Hill Road, there are sections where there are signs that say, do not cross private property. And every time I hit that, I turn around and go back in the opposite direction.
Right. So, I think we could easily put a sign that says private property, but to do warning signs on a piece of property, I think that's up to the owners themselves. So I wouldn't want to presume that I guess from our perspective, notifying people that it's private property, but unless someone went through the effort of going and connecting to each one of those private properties to see what they wanted. But I don't.
Yeah, no, that's not what that's not necessarily what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if there's a trail that people don't, because here's the thing, is that with CR property, with Grafton Land Trust property, with town property, we were just having this conversation at a land trust meeting, saying that as people are out there hiking, they don't know, the average hiker, mountain biker, horse rider is not aware that they're crossing out of town land and into Grafton Land Trust land. And now I'm in a conservation restriction. So what I'm kind of trying to, the bigger umbrella of what I'm trying to propose here is to come together and make sure that we're sending a clear message. Stay on the trail. Don't hike through, ride through, or go through mud, or don't widen the trail. These are all pieces of the puzzle that equate to educating people on how to use our trails properly and to be respectful to the trail system.
And obviously we're all for that. We want to continue to work with the land trust and to be a partner, and because this is a great resource for the town. It really is nice.
And oh yeah.
And it's just,
if I can add, anytime you have active transportation like this, it's also economic development. I was a road cyclist until I had a really bad accident. But between mountain biking and horseback riding and trail runners, we really do have an untapped resource in our amazing trail systems that are all over town. You see a little bit of it up at the community barn when they do the trail run, which of course they haven't done for a little while because of COVID, but that's a huge boom to the town. It's community, it's bringing people together, it's getting people out and onto the trail. Even every time I've done it, I've run into people who said, I've never been on these trails. This is amazing. I had no idea this was here. And it's a great benefit to living in this town and having these great quality trails right in your backyard.
No, I agree with it. And I'm always chastising myself for not using them more. And, it was always good. I'd ride my bike up and I'd walk the trail and ride my bike home and stuff. So, I get it. I would love to see, and I think most of the folks on the commission obviously have a passion about nature and about the trails and you know, that's one of the reasons we're on the commission. So, I mean, I
Yeah.
think I'd love to continue this conversation. And I don't, Leah, if you've got kind of suggestion to try to different ways that we could work with the land trust on this. I mean, I think it would be really nice. It's not as easy as what I'm about to say, is when a trail that is either marked that's either land trust or a CR or the town, is when you hit private property, that we come up with a standard, something that's just notifies people you're entering private property at your own risk or something. You know, get the permission of the property owner or something. I don't know. I'm just throwing something up just to protect our interests in our, you know, so we reduce our liability, but also just to let people know that you're walking out in the middle of the woods, and you know, next thing I know, I'm in the middle of the, you know, easement for the power. I'm going like, I should check my map again and stuff. So it's, you know, so I think anything like that would be helpful. But I also understand Leah's what her recommendation was, is because we don't want to suddenly be in someone's backyard and by mistake.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I will say that the numbered trail, I don't know what's going on with if the links actually live online anymore, but I know when I first found Hasmanasset, and I was so intrigued by the historical markers, but there was nothing to the website doesn't exist anymore, and so all of that information is lost, or at least nobody can access it. Oh, no, yes, it isn't lost, but it's not. So sorry, it's not somewhere where a hiker can access it, either by their phone or, you know, I mean, I actually have a printout of it from way back, way back, and I've never gotten rid of it because I keep holding on to it, thinking, you know, what if we decide to do something with this, or if the town needs it or whatever. But so that trail is already marked. But it's a small portion of the trail system as a whole. So I would love to continue this conversation. I think it's something that would be a really great benefit, especially to that property, because it's so big and people have gotten lost on it before.
So let me just so let me go around the commission just to find what people's interest in, you know, working on something like this would be. So Patrick?
Yeah, I mean, the trails in Grafton are something that I try to utilize a fair amount in exploring a lot of them, because I've done a lot of hiking all over. So now that I'm in town a lot more, I like to find the local stuff. So I'm all for helping to clean up the trails, document them better, utilizing them in a way that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'll note, I think that number of trail information is on the Grafton website.
Oh, good.
But yeah, I mean, I'm certainly willing to help with any kind of trail work stuff. Or trail, I don't know. I was gonna say
Maintenance.
maintenance, marking,
Yep.
design.
Helen?
I think it's a wonderful idea to maintain the trails as a community. It only educates more. I would suggest, or my input would be to work with the land trust and develop different volunteer groups to go out. Keeping the history of the woods perhaps could be reignited into the websites, and to just make those come back. History shouldn't be lost, and all that curiousness is wonderful. It's just enticing to go out and walk in the woods and know what the woods were and what the woods represented and so on. It just makes for a much more enjoyable event. So I would be all for this.
John?
I echo both Helen
Yeah.
and Patrick's sentiments. As someone that's gotten lost out in the woods in Grafton with my 5-year-old and my wife, I'd love more
Sorry.
trail markings. We followed my 5-year-old for a long time and ended up in someone's yard, and so it's I understand that struggle. So I'm fully I'm interested in helping and how we can help as a group, and definitely interested in volunteering to help clear whatever we need to do. And again, I echo what Helen said. We want to preserve the history and preserve the mapping and make sure that it's not sprawling out, and maintaining what we're trying to do there to provide access to it. So
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
Yeah. And I think that I think the first step is to share information. Like, I know we've had past efforts to unlocating and mapping and stuff like that. So, and I'm sure the Land Trust has a lot of that information. I don't know, Leah, if we've ever sat down and like compared who's got what. I know that we've had some Eagle Scouts do different things. And so we have all that information without trying to put a burden on Leah, because right now we're short staffed. But to kind of to maybe rely more on the commissioners to kind of take a more active role and maybe having some sort of informal meeting and just trying to like compare what we have for notes and what is out there in social media and different apps, and are those apps really correct, and what's the avenue to correct some of them, but I love the idea of being able to post where you're going off of public land and onto private. That's a big deal for me. So I don't know if Lee, if you've got any suggestions to add, but I guess I'm looking for this to be more commission driven.
I mean, I had two things regarding this project. Is I was just going to suggest that the commission take a new vote on the project itself, so that the motion isn't just the numbered loop trail, but could say authorizing any trailblazing on town-owned parcels, just to broaden it, but still have it be town-owned parcels.
Yep.
And then if you wanted to add for signage to go up for anything that goes to private property, I mean, not a requirement per se, but if Dawn wanted to take on that extra step, changing the
Yep.
motion would let her do that. And I echo what Patrick said. I have a whole webpage on every one of our conservation properties. Well, not everyone has a map yet. I do have that historic numbered guide, and there's actually 3 guides that go with it: a historic one, a kids one, and natural resources, I think, and they're all up there.
Those, if I can interject, those would be really great to give to the recreation department. I know that they've been working on, I used to be on the Recreation Commission. And I know that they have been putting together a hike your town like passport that kids can use to do. I think they give like 6 trails or 8 trails, and they say, hike at least 4 of them and come back for a prize of some kind. That would be something that I think would be really spectacular, especially if a parent walks in and says, oh, I'm looking for something fun to do with my kids. They can say, oh, look, I've got this printout from I just don't know if Jen and Carrie know that exists. I mean, I didn't know it exists, but that's really cool.
Yeah, I would say, that's why I said the first thing is sharing information. So we all
Yes.
understand what we all the different groups have, but,
Mm.
and, I mean, we certainly have no issue at all with sharing that stuff. So
Also, the one thing I did want to tell you, Sandra, is with regards to the mapping and trail forks and any of the trail apps, like All Trails is another one. Those are all crowdsourced. So if you're seeing a map in the app, it's because feet have walked it.
right.
So they're not just randomly populating themselves. And the other reason why the Land Trust enjoys trail forks so much is that people can put a work report right into it.
Right.
And it gets sent straight to the land trust. And we have all of our volunteers that have volunteered to do trail work are all in the Grafton Land Trust volunteer Facebook page. It's a private group that anybody can join. And so they'll post and say, hey, there's a tree down across such and such a trail at this location. And then someone will pop in and say, I'll be out there with my chainsaw in 24 hours if someone wants to go out and roll the logs away day
Right.
after tomorrow. You know what I mean? So it kind of splits up the work, and it's amazing how it gets done really quickly and efficiently.
Yeah, without getting too much into the details, when you're crowdsourcing using phones and GIS, the level of accuracy is sometimes stunningly good and sometimes really, really bad. So
I'm certain. Yeah.
So that's where the whole private property stuff gets in. However, it's still a really good resource. And there's just tons of information where when you're looking at this type of things and how to place the signs for private property in a location that is safe so that you're not going on someone's property. So yeah, but I think it's, I think to Leah's suggestion is that if we kind of amend our motion, because I don't think anyone on the commission has any issues with, moving forward, we just have a caution about the fact that we do abut a lot of private property and we want to respect that. That's all.
Okay.
So Patrick's trying to look up in the air going like, how am I going to make this motion?
Well, the only other question I had was who is determining what is a trail? Because there's a lot in there that are
informal.
Yeah, especially when you go, if you're walking into Hassamasset Woods from Keith Hill Road, there's a trail that branches off to the right, and I think from that trail there's a bunch of informal little cutouts into the power line section and other random things like that all over.
So those are that's a really good point, and I think that gets back to where Leah was like sticking to the marked trails, because what we don't want to do is create new trails or assign something to a trail that for whatever reason isn't where it should be or whatever circumstances. So that's a good point, and so saying map trails per the per the information that we have, Leah, would that cover that? What's already been mapped out there as opposed to?
So meaning what I had on the screen from the link from Dawn earlier? Is that what you're referring to? And then nothing further?
Or is it what we have on our website, on our mapping?
So on our website is talking about that numbered loop again. It doesn't go much further than that.
Okay. Yeah, we don't. Yeah.
Again, hence the original motion.
Yeah.
So where is it?
I do think it's important to specify that more trails shouldn't be created without coming to us, because this property does also have historic resources on it, and we can't send people marching through archaeological sites.
Yeah, that's kind of key, because people, you don't want to, create an issue where you don't mean to. So,
which I think that proper trail marking, it helps to reinforce I believe I have a picture of the signs at both land trust and town, and I believe it says stay on the trail. And so if there are no markings and then you come to a split in the road, there's no markings on the trail that you were on, nor are there any markings on the trail that's split. I think it leaves a lot to interpretation of the person who's on the trail, saying, well, this looks like a trail to me. It looks well trodden, right? And I will say, someone, I believe it was a person who doesn't live in town anymore. It was my assumption that someone took it upon themselves to mark large portions of the trail over by I'm forgetting the name of the neighborhood, but it's the houses that are off of 122 southbound on the left, and the neighborhood goes up and then it goes left and it comes out on Milford Road. If anybody knows what neighborhood that is. But they're part of Hass Woods is behind that neighborhood, and someone who was living in that neighborhood went in and put stakes in the trees. And so there's probably at least a couple of miles of trails where there are spikes in the trees, which, as knowing what the land trust promotes, we don't promote staking trees at all, because it's damaging to the tree. That's why blazes are the preferred method, not just at the land trust, but also with the DCR and other large organizations.
So, okay, so Leah, do you have any kind of suggestions for let's take it step by step. Let's just amend the motion just to broaden it a little bit, and then we can continue on a separate kind of track of finding a way to meet and really sharing all the information. So we can all be on the same page, because I think we all have the same general goal of promoting the trails, getting people to use it, and just having people appreciate what we have in town. So I think we're all on the same page there. So let's do it step by step and start with an amendment to the motion. Got any suggestions, Leah?
I would just vote to amend the previous authorization for trailblazing work to include trails on town-owned parcels only, but going beyond the prior motion of the numbered loop trail only.
And this is specific to this parcel in town?
Yeah.
Does that need to be in the amendment, or is that already in the original motion?
We have a form that gets filled out. So the form was filled out for Hassanamesset Woods, and then we get an authorization signature at the bottom.
So we'll see how this one goes. I'll motion to authorize to amend the previous vote to authorize trailblazing on existing trails in town-owned parcels for this.
Okay. Does anyone have anything to add to that? I think as a starting place, that's fine. Do I have a second?
You do,
Okay.
but I just lost myself.
That's
There I
all right,
am.
Helen. There you go.
There I am.
All right. So we have a motion to amend the previous motion we had voted on to broaden it a little bit and to make sure it states within on-town properties, just to give kind of a limit on that. So let's have a vote. Patrick.
Yes.
John.
Yes.
And Helen.
Yes.
I am also a yes, so we'll amend that, and then I think what we need to do is figure out a way to kind of have a side, outside of the public hearing process, to share the information, and I think you've got a few folks here that would help, that are eager to help you with whatever you're doing on the different trails. So.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I'm always looking for a reason to get out there too. So can always go take a walk or check things out if as needed.
Yeah.
I will say I'll try to take the map and do a main loop. The way that Kate and I discussed it was basically there's one kind of main drag around the entire trail system. And so that would be one color, white. And then offshoots or cut throughs are represented by a different, and I'm working with the trail stewards through the Grafton Land Trust to kind of hammer out those details. And I'd be happy to send that information through to Leah so that you guys have an idea of what's happening.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. So it won't be like going into like a bowl of spaghetti, right? You should feel like you're getting on the trail and you know where you're going and you know where you're coming out.
Right. It should be very intuitive. You should be able to,
Yes.
that's
Yes.
so that so you can say, oh, this is this color, or this is this shape. You know, some places they do shapes, and there's all different ways for those of us. Well, I'm not, but people who are colorblind, the colors and the shapes, that's why they use both. So,
Yep.
But yeah, that's great. So, all right, look forward to more information. And again, reach out to us where I think you've got a group of folks that are willing to help out. So.
Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks.
Have a great night.
You too.
Yeah, I enjoyed the challenge of wandering around.
Yeah, I've wandered around there, and I knew I ended up someplace, not that I wasn't supposed to be, but someplace a little off the beaten path. So I was like, okay, I need to find my way back. So it is really nice up there. So, all right, Leah. So we have one more item to discuss.
Yep.
And so why don't you give us the short version, so you had it in your information. So go for it.
So we started talking last time about the mowing invoice we received from Ed Berry for work at Merriam Road Conservation Area. I did talk to the town administrator, as you guys asked. He echoed Helen's sentiment to reach out to Ed and see if there was some compromise we could come to. His main point was that we're stewards of the taxpayers' money, so we can't just hand out whatever's asked of us for work we didn't plan for or authorize. So I did talk to Ed. Ed said to just pay what we can. He was very happy to, meet us wherever we need to be, and he's happy to continue to work for us should we need him as backup, if the DPW is in a pinch or anything like that. So, the relationship is still fine. So it was an $1,800 invoice. We currently have $1,600 in conservation land maintenance. And then I just wrote a question to you guys if anyone has any anticipated expenses pertaining to conservation properties prior to June 30. Was just something to think about before we decide on a figure to come out of that remaining $1,600.
Right. Yeah. And I was thinking with respect to that is that, whatever we may anticipate is maybe to do like kind of a two-step thing, is to have, one number and then see what, so it's only another month, correct?
Yeah, the fiscal year ends at the end of June.
End of June. So,
and 2 months.
Yeah. So just to see, to see if there's anything anticipated, but then, if there is, just based on what we end up spending, if there's money left over at that point, we could up the whatever we had. We have to really figure out what we may have expenses. But yeah, I like this approach. I don't know if other people have kind of thoughts on this, and I appreciate, Ed working with us, and we understand things happen, but we want to try to do the right things and don't mess up with what our legal requirements are as a town body too. So other people with other kind of comments or suggestions?
Yeah, I'd like to speak a little bit, if you
Yep.
guys don't mind. I think it's important to know the gentleman, Ted Williams, and he's joined us tonight, and who he is, because last time I was kind of broadsided with questions of why this sort of thing happened. And I just want to express to you, my fellow commissioners, who Ted Williams is, and because it is very important. he was very, very involved with the push and saving of this 52 acres from massive development back in the late 80s. And he is a citizen in Grafton. He is a very, very recognized and published writer and has numerous articles written for National Audubon and the Natural Conservancy. He's published 2 books, which are delightful, and I really commend you guys to go out and seek them out. It's called Earth Almanac and The Wild Moments, and they're fabulous books. His wife, Donna Williams, was a previous conservation commissioner chairwoman in the mid-90s. But most importantly, the gentleman is passionate about protecting open space and the bird life that exists in the open space. And we really need to appreciate, I know that this is a debacle, but we need to appreciate that window that we have in managing this land that we are in charge of, and work together and try to focus on keeping the fields open so that nature won't say, well, Grafton, sorry, you're having a little trouble with getting a brush hog or budget. I'll just cut back on my invasiveness of multiflora rose and bittersweet and so on, and I won't be as intrusive, because it just doesn't happen that way, guys. And up there, in a twinkling of an eye, if things don't get addressed when the time to address them happens, we won't have open fields. We won't have birds. We won't have the food sources that the birds that would be nesting up there will have. It's just going to be an entangled Amazon. And I feel it necessary for you to know who Ted Williams is. And I think he would like to be a part of this discussion too. But it's a passionate thing. And I myself are very, very close to these 52 acres because my family owned those before they went to another family that the town purchased the 52 acres, and what is there now is a result of that. But I know every nook, cranny, rock, stone wall of that. And to have this kind of fall into mowing or not mowing is heartbreaking to me. So.
Thank you, Helen. I'll just say a few words. I feel very badly about this chemical. I thought he was authorized. He thought I had gotten an authorization. The last time I talked to Maria, it was authorized. It didn't get mowed last year, and I thought it was very important to get it mowed before the ground nesting and the bluebird nesting started. So anyway, it's no excuse, but that's what I had thought, and so Ed went ahead and did it. Luckily, he did it before the bluebirds and the ground nesting birds arrived. Bluebirds are just getting started now. I checked all my boxes up there, and I didn't have a full set. I forgot that, so I didn't check the old ones. But we've got two bluebird nests coming along, and one with 3 eggs. They usually lay 5 eggs. So anyway, if it wasn't going to get mowed this year too, comes a point where you can't mow it, and if we lose that open field habitat, we don't get bobolinks, we don't get woodcock, we don't get sparrows, we don't get bluebirds, we don't get a lot of other stuff. It depends on this vanishing habitat, which is So anyway, I do feel badly about it. I don't know if anybody's been up there, but Ed did a fantastic job as he usually does. It looks great. Do you think that you could come up with $800 for it?
Yeah, so and again, I'll go around the rest of the commissioners too, but kind of what I was going to throw out there was, is to pay half of it now and see if we spend any more money, and what we have left over, finish up with the other half.
Well, if you could give him $800 now, like I said, I feel badly. I'd throw him 1,000. That would pay him right now, or I could get you 1,000 by June 1st. Does that sound okay?
So let's go around the rest of the commissioners and see what other folks have. So Patrick,
Yeah, I was up there last week, actually. It looks good. So I'm, glad that it's getting done. I think it's just a matter of figuring out the payment part of it. It's from what I'm reading in our notes here, that was an $1,800 invoice, and we currently have $1,600 in our land maintenance budget for the rest of the fiscal year, right, Leah?
Correct.
So I mean, I'm certainly in favor of sort of what Sandy was suggesting. If we can cover as much of it as we can, I guess, as long as it doesn't cause any other administrative issues. Considering that no one's trying to, it doesn't seem like anyone was trying to, skirt the system, obviously. And I think I missed the conversation 2 weeks ago, so I don't know what was discussed then exactly. But that's kind of my take on it based on this.
okay, John, you got anything to add?
No, it's a misunderstanding. It's unfortunate. We still, Sandy, you pointed it out last meeting. We still got a value out of this, which is important, and this is important for the town. It just, again, I wasn't trying to resist payment to this gentleman in the last meeting. I was simply saying that we want to follow the rules of the road. So, but again, I think as long as I'm in favor of paying him partially now and partially later, or working out some type of a deal. I have no qualms with that. The work's been done. It's benefiting the town. We just have to work out the nuts and the bolts of the budget. That's all.
Again, could you think that you could get him $800 by June 1st? If you can, I will throw in 1,000.
I appreciate that, and I guess what I'm trying to do is actually maybe have us pay more than the $800, just so that I guess, Leah, as far as you asked if there's anything else coming up for payments. What do we, out of this particular, maintenance, is there anything that that's outstanding right now, or is there anything that we are anticipating? I mean, the whole idea of getting the brush hog was so that the town could do it. So.
Yeah, I don't have any concrete plans for anything, and I don't have any outstanding invoices prior to June 30. The question would just be how much of a buffer we leave in case something comes up. Examples of what that might be are, obviously it's not winter now, but in the past we've had a plow hit one of our property signs. We had to fix that. There's an old well out at Pell Farm that used to have a little shelter built over it. That shelter kind of fell down, so I asked DPW for help putting something back up so folks wouldn't go explore and, God forbid, fall in the well. So then things like that, we would then need to pay for that lumber. So I don't have any plans between now and June 30, but just how much should we leave in case something arises? Maybe it won't, and
Right.
you know,
So
that's great, but
so if we left $500 in there, would that be like on the things that you're talking about would cover those type of kind of?
yeah, yep,
Okay. And then that would mean $1,100 we could pay
sure.
right up front. Yeah.
Well, if you pay $1,100, I'll make up the difference. How's that?
Okay. Just to go around, Helen, how do you think about that?
Fabulous.
Okay. John
I think that's a great idea.
and Patrick.
Yeah, sounds fine to me.
Okay. Leah, do you want, should we make a motion on this just to make sure it's all?
Sure.
Okay. So can I have a motion about which would be paying $1,100 on this particular invoice? Yeah, that'd be pretty simple, straightforward. And then if at the end of the, kind of the end of the budgetary cycle, which is June 30th, I don't mind paying the other part too, if, so I don't know, go ahead, Patrick, why don't we try to do try to put together a motion here.
So do we want to refer to this as like a partial payment or?
Good question. As you can tell, I was trying to hand that off to you for that. So yeah, no, that's a good question. I think the way we can do it is that we can, do a initial payment of $1,100 on an $1,800 invoice, keeping a reserve of $500 for unanticipated costs. And if we do not have any other costs on the maintenance, we can, kind of pay additional money on the invoice, but we won't know that, and we don't know the fee of the amount until the end. So it leaves it a little bit open-ended, but at least we can get $1,100 out to on this particular invoice. So
Actually, I'd like to throw in 700. So why don't you make a motion for that? Count on it on June 1st.
okay, that sounds fine. So why don't we just simplify it and just say we'll make an $1,100 payment on this invoice, and then we'll just approve that.
Okay, that's easy. I'll motion to make an $1,100 payment on this invoice. I guess that's it.
Do I have a second?
I second that.
Any other further discussion? And just, appreciate everyone's desire to do the right thing and try to get it done and still be responsible for our, duties as being on the commission too. So we've got a motion and a second, so we'll go through and do a roll call vote. Patrick,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Helen,
Yes.
I am also a yes, and that motion passes. So thanks everyone. And so we'll, basically process that, Leah, for the $1,100. We'll keep $500 kind of in reserve and appreciate the balance being paid off. So that would make them whole. It gives us, the due process that we needed to go through to pay this and deliberate on it. And so I think good result. So thanks everyone.
Okay, thanks. I'll get you a check for $700 on June 1st.
So Leah, I think you just, what's the
It's
best way to do it?
actually, it's easier if you just pay Ed. Because the account that I pay this out of on our end, I can't make deposits to.
Does that work?
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
So to give us money, we can't put it into account and then pay it, because of it goes into a general account.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's part of the general fund. It's not a revolving account, so I can't make a deposit if you give us $700. It's easier if your 700 goes directly to Ed,
all right,
if that's
okay.
possible.
Okay. Sounds great. Gets him whole, and I appreciate helping us out and so forth. And thanks everyone for, taking the time to really be considerate about how we're doing this. So thanks everyone. That was it, right, Leah?
Yeah, that's all I have.
Does anyone else have anything else? And yeah, I would like to try to follow up on the trail stuff because I would love to do that. I just don't have a heck of a lot of time right now, but it's definitely something I'm interested in. But other than that, we have one last motion then.
A motion to adjourn?
Do I have a second?
You do.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call. Helen,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
I am also a yes. Thanks, everyone.